Yeah. Well,
Okay, now it's official.
Very loud.
Good. I'm going to call it afternoon since it's still light outside. Winter time, it's good evening. We start at 6. My name is Liz Slavachinsky. We are here for the Cannabis Advisory Panel on April the 17th, and we will first do a round. I think that's my first agenda. Start with you, Mary, and then we'll go all the way. Thank you.
Yeah, for the panel.
Dr. Andrew Austin, part of the panel. Joe Brandage, I'm the business manager with the Sheriff's Office.
I'm Trevor Stevens. I'm with the Community Justice Department on their business.
Zach, the Health Services Department, and then Program Manager.
Good evening. I'm Peter DeCobb, the Deschutes County's Community Development Director. See most of you involved in the initial appointment process with the county commission. So the pleasure of staffing facilitating great meetings.
We were newbies.
Yeah, we were fresh out of the box.
I'm Eric Croft, Deputy County Administrator.
Detective Dustin Miller, Deschutes County Sheriff's Office.
Anthony Rollins, Deschutes County Sheriff's Office, Detective Partner for February 1.
Very solid advisory.
Jim Patterson, Deschutes County Administrative Manager.
And Tony DeBoe, Deschutes County Commissioner.
And online we have.
Good evening, Jake Johnstone, Oregon Water Resource Department. I am the Field Services Deputy Administrator. One of my former positions was Southwest Region Manager and District 14 Water Master. So I've been on a fair share of cannabis advisory panels. Just for the folks in the room, letting you know that Jeremy Giffen, the Water Master for the Deschutes Basin, will be our replacement for Kyle on this group. However, he's on vacation. He is in Mexico, much to my chagrin. So I'm here to kind of take notes and answer any kind of questions you guys may have for WRD and cannabis. Thanks.
Thank you. And before we go into approval of minutes, may I just indicate that we've got 2 members of the Cannabis Advisory Panel who have resigned for different reasons. Kyle Gorman has retired. That is why we've got Jake on our Zoom call. And Joe Stapleton needed to move out of our area in order to handle some personal familial issues. So I think at a later point during this meeting, we'll talk about replacements, making recommendations potentially to the commissioners in order to fill us back up to our 8. But today we are a quorum of 5, which is terrific. Okay, do we have a motion to approve minutes, or are there any discussions regarding the minutes from our last meeting? Mary has motioned. Thank you, Gary. Gary has seconded to approve. Okay, so the proposed allocation of fiscal year 23-24 cannabis tax revenue. Mr. Eric?
Yes. In your packet is a memo that kind of gives updated numbers in terms of projections for marijuana revenue next fiscal year. We put together the budget. We're already starting on putting together the budget. And one of the first things we do is estimate revenue for next year. At the last Cannabis Advisory Panel meeting, we were looking at $160,000 in projected revenue. That was based on the last quarter that we received the funds. Since that time, we received our quarterly marijuana tax distribution, and most recent quarter, it was $45,599. So based on that last quarter, we're projecting next fiscal year's revenue to be 4 times that. So we're projecting it to be $182,396. So that's just some updated numbers, and so that's what we would be looking at a recommendation on, is how to spend that $182,000 for next fiscal year.
And a question, there's apparently House Bill 2089. I looked it up. I'm not sure where it stands in Salem at this point, if it's going to make it through, but that is supposed to reallocate marijuana tax revenue into more city and county distributions? Do we know if?
I don't know the latest status of that at all. I don't know, Jen,
Yeah.
she'll look it up for us. If there's, I guess if there's additional revenue next year, what we can do is come back to the committee and talk about the additional revenue, and then that could go to the board. And then even though the board adopts the budget that's effective July 1st, throughout the year, things change. So we go to the board with budget adjustments.
Okay.
That bill's currently still in House Committee, so I haven't got that.
Yeah. Okay. So it may not make it.
It may not.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Any questions on the projected revenue?
Okay, so we'd now like to go to the our presenters who are here in our meeting, and I'm going to go. I think this is no, they're not quite alphabetized, but we're going to go in this order. Community justice.
Perfect. So my name is Trevor Stevens. As I said before, I'm the business manager for the Community Justice Department, and we come here to ask you guys for roughly $25,000 is what we're requesting. And what we are trying to do is we're trying to bring in a training for substance use disorder for justice-involved youth. So one of the areas that's lacking in our community is those youth that have already made it into the justice system, just having an evidence-based curriculum that's out there that we can utilize with those youth based on their risk assessments that we do internally within our department. We really need something, either we do it internally, whether we bring it in-house, or we also, the good thing is the training that we were looking at, which is the University of Cincinnati's training, it would provide enough slots that we could offer in-house slots. We could also offer slots to our community partners that we work with, which are in the community that provide drug and alcohol treatment for youth. And so what that would allow us to do, it would just bring us an evidence-based curriculum that really works at looking at criminogenic risk, which is different than prevention. So once they've made it to us, they've already had the JCP assessment. And so there's different criminogenic risk factors we have to work on once they've already come into our system. And so this curriculum really works on skills and skill building that really addresses those specific aspects of that with the youth. And so our goal would be to bring that in-house or either use community partner to provide that, and really have a curriculum that we could offer that's really a group-centered approach just to providing services for youth in our community. So that's our main goal with this ask is we've created a work group, but these trainings are pretty expensive, as you can see, and many of our community partners, they can't afford to bring a $22,000 curriculum into town to really provide that. So we're hoping that we can bring that into town. We can invite some of our community partners to attend, and then also utilize our internal staff maybe to also provide that. And the goal is really just to have an option for those that are already within our system to really kind of work on those criminogenic risk factors, which are directly connected to substance use and substance use disorder, kind of really focus on that aspect of it. Whereas we have lots of community partners that are providing the prevention aspect in the community, but this is once they've already come into our system, kind of really focusing on that. And this would be, there's no local providers that offer this option in our community right now. And so it'd just be a great thing, I think, for Deschutes County and for our community to have to provide for youth that have already come into our system. And I'm happy to answer questions about this or any other things that come up. Yes.
How many slots are available as part of the training?
So it depends on usually they roughly give you 18 slots is really what they'll do. And so, but they'll work with you on that. So once we have approval and the group has decided to move forward with that, then what we would do is we'd go out to the University of Cincinnati and get a request for a proposal in terms of how many slots they could offer us. I do have a training going on with them right now, and they offered 18 slots. So my guess is it'd be right around the 18 number.
And how many your department would attend?
Probably at least. Probably 5 to 7. So it'd still be quite a few slots open for community members. And I mean, there's quite a few SUD agencies in the community that actually provide kind of preventive services and some services on a more of an individual level for youth. So it also provide opportunities to invite them in to attend them as well. So I guess 5 to 7 probably internally.
I don't want to hog the Q&A with you, but for those community providers, do they have a training budget and could they pay for the slots?
It'd be very unlikely. Just the cost of these, I mean, because you think about that, you divide that up over, divide that by the 18, I mean, we're still looking at $1,200 a slot. And that's a lot of money to ask the community provider to we've done this on the adult side, and we've asked, can you afford anything? They have not been able to. So my guess is on the juvenile side, they would likely be in a similar boat in terms of what they could offer and what they could provide.
Any other questions?
I do. So is this person who's retired from juvenile, would this be provided just for those that are detained, or would it be for those on probation, or what are you looking at as far as providing them?
It'd be mostly for those that are actually on supervision right now, so not those in detention. It wouldn't be a curriculum you'd offer in detention. It'd be more of those working with a parole and with a CJO, community justice officer, kind of working on that aspect.
How is that already that has been provided up to this point?
In terms of like in the community or by us?
In the
There is no current group curriculum that specifically targets criminogenic risk in our community right now for group treatment.
And is there a train the trainer?
There is eventually. So how it works usually with University of Cincinnati is after an individual has delivered the curriculum at least twice, so 2 full times through, they could then potentially qualify to go to University of Cincinnati and attend their train the trainer. So that at least we would get to the point where we'd have people in our community that are trained in it. So then maybe at some point we could look at a future option of getting a trainer, which would be really nice to have that in our community.
And how long has this curriculum been around? And what's the percentage of success or any of that?
So let me see if they talk about, so they kind of started building it in 2010, and it really focuses on the skill building components. So I don't have any specific numbers of success, but I mean, it's a high dosage treatment model, and it's cognitive behavioral therapy, which has a high success rate with youth that come into our system. So, I mean, once we saw it in Oregon, if we saw this going out, we could, at some point, maybe look at some trials and stuff to see how it works in our community. But University of Cincinnati, the nice thing about their services is that they really focus on that skill building component. So really providing like behavior chains and looking at the thoughts and the processes behind how that works. And so it's been shown to be effective with our population. And so we really like to have that as a kind of go with some of the other stuff that we do in our system to kind of really work with youth that are on supervision.
How many youth are on supervision right now?
Ish. I think we're probably right around around 300, 350. So, and this would focus on those youth that are risking out at moderate to high. So that's the goal of these curriculums. Looking at criminogenic risk, those that are like risking out in that moderate or high level, well, they're likely to recidivate in the future. And it really focuses on that population.
What percentage of that are drug use? Marijuana use. By drug, I don't have a breakdown of what that percentage is, but I mean, a large percentage of them are in our system for some connection to SEG use, whether it's through a property crime or through something like that. So I mean, it would have a large impact with the youth in our community. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Towski.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just for context, in fiscal year 23, current fiscal year, the Cannabis Advisory Panel recommended $20,000 for code compliance, and we are respectfully requesting another $20,000 to go into code compliance. For context, all of our regulated, permitted marijuana grow sites have been found to be in compliance. And we do annual evaluations for things per the Deschutes County Code. There were 7 complaints involving illegal grow sites this year. 3 were investigated and were determined to be unfounded. They were not illegal grow sites. As Commissioner DeBone is aware, there was one possibly for some of these other ones too, but there was one instance where there was an illegal grow site. The property owner leased the property. Apparently was didn't realize that the property was growing illegal marijuana. There was a raid on it. There was a lot of plastic tarps that were on the property and blowing off the property. So code compliance.
I don't think there was a way that.
Was there not a raid? It was just after the activating.
They cleaned up a lot before we get to.
So there was a site where we have. So where there was plastic, maybe they had left, and we've been working with solid waste, which offers vouchers. The property owner was frustrated by the cost of cleaning up the remnant plastic tarping, and so in coordination with solid waste and the correspondence with Commissioner Bone, we have been working with that property to clean it up because it's a nuisance to have no plastic tarps blowing on adjoining properties. So that one feels like it's close to just being closed. It's still technically active. There are 3 other ones that, and I should back up. That one was not an illegal marijuana site. That was kept growing outside with plastic blowing off. So related to, of course, marijuana. There were other cases involving solid waste, not obtaining the appropriate building permits, living in RV occupancies with in violation of county code. Those were investigated. There were 2 of them that I show on my notes that our code compliance team worked with the sheriff's office, and there was a drug raid, like I said, and now the county was working with the property owner to address whatever remnant issues occurred there that violated the solid waste building or land use code. So there are 2 of those that are currently active, and in code compliance, it does take time to resolve these issues. The way the legal system is set up, property owners have a lot of protections. One, just if you saw the response, so there was in summary of CDD's respectful request, there was a question about tarps and how quickly can one clean them up, and in that explanation, there's a whole process. The investigation, the voluntary, if the investigation shows that there's a violation of county code, there's voluntary compliance agreements. If those don't compel the property owner, then one can basically initiate a process to go to the administrative hearings officer, which is our prominent approach, where there's evidence presented, and the hearings officer can issue a decision, which then allows us to issue daily fines. And then if nothing is happening, we can find ourselves having to go to circuit court to issue an injunction or to go through an abatement process. So that's a lot to unpack, but I would say that over the last year, our code compliance team has worked well with the sheriff's office, of course, following their lead on a marijuana investigation and a raid that occurs is duly noted. We have had some issues with hemp and the blowing of the tarps. Hemp, of course, the industry has acknowledged that the price of hemp has dropped precipitously. So whether we continue to get hemp in complaints going forward remains to be seen. But nonetheless, I think the general takeaway, to the extent that there's support for CDD to have these resources, is that the code compliance is, like I said, is involving illegal structures, people living longer than is what's allowed temporarily in an RV. You have solid waste that has to be cleaned up, and so that's in coordination with the solid waste department and whatnot. So it requires a multi-departmental approach, and CDD has a contract with solid waste to do their enforcement. So it takes a lot of coordination, and we are duly trying to fulfill that or excuse me, fulfill those responsibilities as I summarize. So open to any questions, but it's a respectful request.
Yeah, I mean, I guess first of all, you mentioned the one that had the environmental hazards left behind, and that would be talking about that was actually not an illegal cannabis go.
Well, there's a couple of active files, and I don't have the addresses, but 2 were involved with a drug raid, so that's illegal marijuana. I'm sorry, 2 were involved solid waste with hemp and just plastic and potentially illegal structures and whatnot. And so most of that's just garbage with the plastic, because one can grow hemp legally and outside as a farm use, as under right to farm. So over the last year, we've seen a combination of hemp and illegal marijuana. But whether one of those, I presume one of those is on the east side of Bend, but I can't say that based on the things that I have.
Probably was economic, less,
correct.
They are. My other question would be to the usage of the funds, whether it just kind of goes to general fund, making sure it's more specific, give more teeth to you with these illegal funds. Could it go to a dump fee program, or legal fee program? I think what we're looking for is something that we see go specifically to make an impact versus just going general fund. Even though a lot of the work you're doing sounds like it's in coordination with the sheriff's department on issues.
No, that's a great question. And currently in this fiscal year, the $20,000 went into code compliance operations, and so it was not teased out based on how it specifically went to hemp or marijuana. Our recommendation is that it continue to go into operations to fund code compliance, while noting that if code compliance has priorities based, just for context, based on the kind of eminent issues to public health and safety. If it's marijuana raid, that's going to rise to the top because that has public safety issues. If it has solid waste implications, that's going to rise to the top as well. Certainly, if people are living in illegal structures, that has concerns for us because the structures could obviously pose a danger to those that are living within it. One can certainly make a respectful recommendation that to the extent that there's support ultimately from the board, that starting with the Cannabis Advisory Panel, that those $20,000 or up to $20,000 to the extent possible is allocated for marijuana, we would do note that. It's just that our operations that we have, as we have 400 cases, many involving real significant challenges with solid waste. And so we don't have a system yet, but I can commit to this Cannabis Advisory Panel that if we find ourselves a year from now and I'm here, I would have better data to show you so that we could further disaggregate exactly the types of code compliant issues that we had involving hemp or marijuana related illegal circumstances that involve this particular division within CDD.
400 total. Cannabis.
Correct. 400. We have our priorities go much larger than just marijuana. I think you're right, and you're taking the cue that I mentioned earlier. The price of hemp has hit rock bottoms. I don't know if we're going to see someone growing hemp, let alone outside. It is a sturdy plant. So, if you're looking at utility for where these funds can go, I have colleagues in other departments that, I want to admit, may have more the ability to allocate it specifically related or tangentially related to marijuana. But nonetheless, you know, from a code compliance standpoint, these funds are very helpful for our division. You know, as I said, as we coordinate with the sheriff's office for solid waste, and within our own division as it pertains to on-site wastewater and building code complaints. So, yeah, it's.
If you were to notice them that they are in violation, how long would it take to get that property to civil court?
It's a very good question.
6 months, a year?
Yes, I would think to the extent that, well, what's the outcome? We would typically, we try to issue upon the investigation, to the extent that the investigation is confirmed. Now, if it's marijuana related, we already have it confirmed because the sheriff's office has gone in and said, we have an illegal grow site with all the.
Right, but my question is, you know, how long does that take to get it into the court system?
Into the, to clean up, to lien the property, potentially to abatement, I would say anywhere from 3 to 9 months, potentially.
Okay. And the illegal grows, are they on private land?
They are on private land. We don't have jurisdiction on public lands.
And for those private landowners, are they feigning ignorance that it was a marijuana grow?
I don't know the specifics of that. What I can tell you is that there have been communications with the property owner. I am presuming that the property owner leased the land. Unbeknownst to them, there was this illegal activity, which was confirmed by the actions and investigations of the sheriff's office. And then once that issue has been resolved from a criminal standpoint, our code compliance team is then tasked to address the solid waste, the illegal land use. And so it's those cases are ongoing, I think, because of the inevitable challenges of engaging property owners.
So, and maybe this is a question for you guys. If it's an illegal grow, is there any penalty for having an illegal grow on a private landowner's property?
So the way we do it is we look at, and I think I know exactly which location. Do you have addresses?
I don't, I just, but I could pull it up and get it.
What are the case numbers on the other two? Not all, but not the other one. Are they 2 consecutive case numbers?
I have 5, I mean, it's year 2022, 516 CE and 6.
Those are your, okay, those are.
Actually, there's one for the DS. Yeah, so 60. I don't know if you
okay. So a lot of those, yeah, so we have, and I think I know which 3 he's specifically talking about. The Albanalty one was they claimed hemp, did not have hemp licensing. They were trimming and taking stuff out across BLM or late night in U-Haul, stuff like that. Before we could actually get on property with the legal means of the warrant, they tore down and left, leaving a lot of plastic, which caused a lot of the issue. So when we say hemp, marijuana, I can't tell you specifically because I did not test that product. My assumption is it's marijuana, the way that it was grown, the way that it was harvested, the way that they left.
Wait, yeah.
Right. So based on my training experience, I would say that was marijuana. That caused a very big issue. I think there was over 83 greenhouses at that location. It was a big issue.
That was the alfalfa.
Yep. That was one in alfalfa. So that owner received money for a lease on the property, right? And then now he's got a mess on his hands. The other ones I believe we're looking at, I believe there was one out by the airport. I believe there was one in between Ben and Redmond. Those were leased properties that were subleased. A gentleman reached out, leased property, subleased. 2 people who were supposed to be growing hemp were growing marijuana. Those were cases that we concluded. I believe there was over 20 greenhouses at the one by the airport, and there was supposed to be 20 greenhouses between Ben and Redmond. Those were illegal. Both of those locations, being that I did investigate them and go on there were RVs with sewage issues, there were electricity issues, there were water usage issues. The one in between Ben and Redmond, specifically the gentleman reported numerous times for building and running a business of refurbishing RVs in which people were staying in during that particular location. Now, unfortunately, on the back end, the way that we investigate is we will have our case we have Deputy Laura Connard who comes out. She does a investigation, takes photos, writes a report, sends it to CDD. At that point, we don't ever see it again. And I don't know, I can't tell you what the outcome is of that. I'm going to tell you based on my experience, we haven't seen what I feel is a lot of follow through. And I apologize, I don't mean to be pointed on that, but we don't see a lot of follow through based on what we're seeing in other counties. Jackson, Josephine, Douglas, those guys are going in and they're laying $1,000 per greenhouse violation for every unpermitted structure. Then they'll have electronic, if they brought electrical into them, a violation for that also. Then they will have utility if they're bringing in fans. They're dropping $150,000 fines on locations down there that are getting quick. Well, I couldn't tell you the time. I'm not going to tell you the time. I can't testify to that. But what we're seeing is we're seeing the community going, oh, wow, we're not going to have it in our community because I'm not, as a landowner, going to take these citations or these fines coming at me. What we see more now, granted, because we have been limited resources in the team and the amount of people that we can have and the number of these we can take down in 1 year. Yes, we're getting them every year, but with limited numbers, what we're seeing more is we're doing a lot more indoor grows that are illegal. And what we're seeing is a lot of modified structure. We're seeing a lot of modified electrical, very dangerous electrical. And that's where we're also, again, having Laura to come in, take pictures, send off. Again, I can't tell you what the follow through is. I don't know what the follow through is on your guys' end because I don't have access to your guys' your database and how you guys go with that. What would be nice from a law enforcement standpoint, from an investigative standpoint, would be a CDD officer that would be willing to come in my hip pocket and look at these, that can make decisions on the ground instead of having to get a referral, wait in the kiosk, be assigned, and then go, right? That would speed up the process. Now, if that money from this particular board could be allocated towards somebody who is willing to come out on those locations, that would be beneficial to me as law enforcement. Again, I'm not talking as a board, I'm talking as a law enforcement officer who investigates this. Right. So as far as that goes, I don't want to speak to the outcome because I can't tell you what the outcomes are.
Well, and I think that's your question. Keep in mind that I'm not the sheriff officer. Landowners can be liable, but it's not clear cut to where it's an easy way to threaten. But the sheriff's office is looking at the most efficient way to get out the word and market the fact that if you lease this property, you can't claim, I don't know, but that's what they claim. I had no idea. But it depends on kind of just, it's not, oh, so we got you and you're doing this. It's we got you. So you may have to end up having these fees. And the better we can figure out how to enforce that, the more powerful.
Right. And that's my point. That was the reason for my line of questioning, because if these landowners are getting money for leasing out their land, whether or not they know it, they should know it, because ultimately they're still responsible. So, for my opinion on it now is I don't necessarily want tax revenue money going to something that, my opinion, is the landowner should resolve. And maybe, well, they're illegal, so city bond isn't going to do anything for cleanup. But if there are any more hemp grows, then maybe those locations need to have some kind of a remuneration back to the county if they leave the property full of plastic. So and I don't know if the county can change the way that we do code enforcement to shorten that amount of time between initial report that this is a violation to starting to slap the fines.
You have to go to if I may, you have to go to a hearing. One can't just go straight to citation. There's a due process involved, so you can do your investigation and maybe it could be expedited. And go right to the schedule of going to circuit court takes time. It's easier for us to go to an administrative hearings officer, which is independent land use attorney that's under contract. So you go to a hearings officer and you present the evidence showing the violations of illegal building permit activity, electrical activity, solid waste, land use violations. And then the hearing officer weighs that evidence. The property owner is given due notice to participate at that hearing, And then once the hearings officer issues their decision, it's at that point you can issue daily citations. So the land use, and I don't know the criminal aspect of how quickly you can go to, go to court and issue the requisite penalties. But under code compliance, the system is set up to provide tremendous protection for the property owner. There's extensive due process, and then you issue daily fines, and there's an expectation that they're going to pay. And then if they don't, there's a point at which we can take those funds and lien the property, so to recoup that once the property sells. Or there's a separate process if you want to go to circuit court to seek an injunction. Maybe there's people living there illegally, they're still living there, you want to work with the sheriff's office. So you have a judge issue an injunction so that we can literally force with due process, with notice and whatnot, that those illegal activities or legal occupants are no longer on the property. The same is true for abatement. You have to go to circuit court with the evidence, duly notice to the property owner for the reasons for abatement, because as one would imagine, government just can't go on the property and clean it up without notifying the property and having an independent, in this case, magistrate issue that order. So absolutely.
First of all, I agree with you guys that I don't think ignorance is a viable defense for these landowners. I believe the intention of money that we gave last year, $20,000, was in response to Commissioner Bowman pointing out to us some of the environmental hazards that people. We had the discussion last year about if it was on public land, of course, we could go do it on private. It's the landowner's responsibility, really, and we didn't want to fund that. So I think the compromise was giving the money to codes to help them enforce those type of things. I really like Dustin's idea about, could we find a way to put this towards a CDC officer that is out there helping you guys, working hand in hand, making sure that it does go more towards, supporting you with your efforts with illegal growth to give you more teeth. I think is what our intention was last year. I don't know if there's a way that, whether we could designate it like that, or, I think we're all tired of this excuse of, well, I didn't know. Well, do your due diligence. You have to have a license, ask to see the license. It's weak.
Yeah, just to be clear, CDD isn't relying on the excuse that, hey, I didn't know.
No, I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying, in general, we hear this, right? And whether it's the Justice Department with the Sheriff's Department or the Codes Department, that's just not an acceptable excuse to me. So I do like to see that we can support the codes, and I do like to see that they're working so well with the Sheriff's Office on those issues. And
Justin, one of the things that you said is that there may be more internal inside illegal grows than outside. So, if you were to kind of map out a chart, is outdoor illegal grows going down?
So over the last couple of years, I'd say that they did a little bit, because for a couple of reasons. We had really harsh beginning of the year where a lot of guys lost to hail and to frost. So the climate was not as desirable. We also had Southern Oregon go under a state of emergency where they shut down, and that helped with ODA by a lot of different licensing. So that people were more reluctant to get licenses. The hemp market went down a lot, which then made the illegal marijuana growers more obvious when they were putting in. So the outdoor grows have gone down, and we fluctuate. So right now we're coming into a season that I do not know what this season holds in front of us, because it depends on the culture, right? And the weather. Now we're coming out of an indoor grow season. Now we will always have the indoor. We still have the indoor throughout the summer. We just have to focus on our outdoor, which is impacting our community with a lot of the water problems and with people living in trailers, the greenhouses and the plastics, different things like that. So this year was a little bit of a downturn compared to what I was expecting. I don't know what this year in front of us holds.
Well, and also, you know, even the consumption of marijuana, I think, is going down, and there's still quite a bit available, right? Like stockpiled. Are you working
Nobody quite put it that way, but yeah. So overall revenue did go down this year. Still debatable whether that was actually affected by units or just dropped because of the price.
Okay.
Because how they measured its overall revenue for tax purposes, that I wouldn't argue that it has probably dropped a little bit coming out of COVID those times.
Right.
And what was the other part of that?
Well, I'm just wondering if
the
inventories,
they still do say that, you know, every year we're clearing through what we did the year before.
okay.
So there's not necessarily a stockpile or a growing stockpile, but we are currently only using about 65 to 70% what is grown every year. It's the rest of it would get put into extracts or holds over. So we're getting there. We're getting closer.
Jake, you have your hand. Oh, yes, you do.
Yeah. I was just wondering if so I'll just tell you something that they did in Jackson County, and then Josephine County followed suit in regards to landowners and leases. We had a huge influx of duffel bag leases over the last 3 years in Southern Oregon. I live in Grants Pass. And one of the things that County Code in Jackson County did with kind of in conjunction with the sheriff's office and the assessor's office is with those annual tax statements, they sent out an informational flyer that's just basically a 2-page warning to try and deal with this, you know, I didn't know any better type argument. So it kind of preloaded people ahead of time with what you could face as a penalty. Water Resources and the Water Master's office also had a little blurb in there as well, pointing towards, you know, the illegal water use and the components there as well. So I don't know if that's something you guys have done in Deschutes County or you'd consider, but I'd be happy to find you a copy of that if you'd like to peruse it.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Send us a copy.
We've discussed it.
We've discussed that with the assessor, who's slow to do that. So it would be a good example to that. Show him how it was done.
Not a problem.
Is if we open the door, we're opening the door to everybody. Now you've got your tax statement with a huge thing of mailers. And his other feeling is everybody throws away everything except for the statement in the first place. So if you get to see an example in person.
Please cross the topic. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Discussion? Great.
Thank you
very much. Next up, we have Jessica, Health and Services. Thank you.
So again, Jessica Jack, Program Manager for Prevention and Promotion Section at Services, and I'm here to talk about the other end of the spectrum from where we've been. I would underscore that I think addressing the entire spectrum very, very important. I'm on the prevention side of things, particularly looking at molestation use. We have put a proposal together that really extends from the support that the Cannabis advisor this fiscal year, and that we're trying to improve and increase child-parent interaction. So we know, despite what we might think, we all have kids, actually parents. Your number one influence to keep a kiddo from using drugs before the age of 20. So, despite the eye roll, despite the attitude that might come in your household, we want to ensure that parent-child dialogue is occurring and early and in a way that is productive. So with the resources that people allocated to us through the budget process, that was a total of $30,000. We developed the public service announcements, all focused on, and they're all in play right now, all focused on encouraging parents to with their children. And not only that, but giving parents and community members resources for how to do that. So attention to a workshop that we provide called Connect Parent Workshop, and then resources on the website shared. The PSA's public service are there as well. With this proposal, we are requesting $60,000. That was in light of what we were able to do this year from about January to the end of the fiscal year, June. We were able to develop those 3 PSAs that cost $12,000, and the rest of the cost was all advertisement. So a very spendy endeavor. So we are wanting to take the money from this proposal and not develop new PSAs, but ensure that the PSAs that we have are in play next year. Hopefully, target starting up in September when the school year starts, and continue next year. Look at my notes now, see what I'm forgetting. We will run those PSAs, consider web advertising, social media, streaming television, cable television. That's not enough resources to really extend it to radio or streaming audio. So that particular media channel, those channels, and we specifically are able to work with those vendors in a way that we know is targeting the population. I think I'm just one final thought, and of course have questions. The way in which we develop messaging is really important, and I don't think it's well understood. And so if you look at the public service announcements that we have developed, they are positive, they're upbeat, they are full of resources. They are not what we call scare tactics or something that's going to alert people or to the warnings of cannabis use or whatever drug might be focusing. We actually find that is very, very counterproductive. It can actually increase use. So possibly youth that are interested in risky behavior. It can undermine us as adults in the community, because when they don't see some dying or whatever the scare approach we're trying to. We think, gosh, it's only our kids who know how scary this is, but what they hear and experience is that thing that you're scared of doesn't happen to them. Yeah, and they become more resilient to that. So I have a brochure that I think does a really good job in explaining why scare tactics messaging don't work. And I wanted to leave a copy with the panel members because it is so critically important. Some of the things that my team think is well known, because we can't usually raise our hand. We stopped that from happening, but there are a lot of times that we are reviewing a message or presentation plays. It runs the gamut, and what we're looking for are particular key points. This is going to be helpful to our community or harmful. And so this gives a nice synopsis of what we're looking for to ensure that
that was like in the old days we had that horrendous car accident, you bring the car to schools. Doesn't work. It doesn't impact the kids at all, right? But I've seen those ads that you guys have done this past year, and they are very easy. I think for a parent, yes, he's so funny. The parent is just so funny that will into my day. You know, stuff that I think a parent can relate to and a kid can relate to. But then I also went online to see what those resources were, and the resources are awesome. So yeah, I was looking for those, and I was glad to start seeing those. So good.
Do you see an uptick on web activity after the U6 run?
I apologize, I don't have that information. So we're just situation.
Maybe you provide attention because I'm
no other than I just pick up to it. Good and with honest communication. Mentioned not wanting to target social media such as this point, right?
Radio and streaming audio.
Okay. And do you know what platforms?
So that would be Facebook, or Meta. And there's Instagram work.
We've got another great avenue because I know our big programming interface generally has declined and is still declining.
Yes, if I had
It's
using
are targeted for parents rather than youth. Is that right? So you're not advertising in areas where
like Snapchat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it should be more.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
And
I did have one other question. So you're saying going into this next fiscal year, creating any new ones? Are you going to still just keep using the one that you have up? Or?
We use the ones that we have and rotate them strategically. We also have, if you recall, we leverage resources from Oregon Department of Transportation. So they'll have work they develop that's focused on impaired driving. So we'll be circulating them.
And they're English and Spanish. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Sheriff's Department.
Sheriff's Office is asking for $75,000. We did what we asked for and received last year. The team was set up several years ago, and I don't just puking on it. I think since I started around 2019, 2018, 3.5 years. 3.5 years. But the sheriff has always been focused on the crime that accompanies illegal marijuana. So early on, partnered with county to set up this team that was separate from our regular drug enforcement team that works with the various agencies and covered team that has Jefferson County and Crook County. And since then, we've had a state grant that has helped, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it helps cover some of the equipment and testing supplies we need, and it covers our analysts, and it covers the overtime. It does a great job on when it's time to do a raid, it covers the overtime of all the bodies that need to help them go in. But it's never helped cover the payroll costs of our actual detectives that do this work. And so the county has partnered with us, and I know it's no good to say, well, the old policy So but instead I'm gonna say this partnership was formed, I think, to show that the county was as committed as the sheriff's office to enforcing the illegal aspects that still exist with marijuana. The community, it's starting to change, but it was originally like, why are you guys doing this? It's legal now. But you've heard from Dusty, you've seen the trafficking and the guns that come along with this. And since Jessica brought up the parenting thing, I'll just use a parenting analogy. I've got 6 kids. My oldest is 24, my youngest is 14. But I remember when my oldest were still really young, talking with some friends that were parents of teenagers, and they were talking about the trouble their kids were getting in. And they would laugh and go, but it's no big deal. We did that when we were young, and look how we turned out. So, and I don't know about you, but I always felt that was a dangerous proposition or the thing, because maybe we did get away with that, but we knew we were going to get in trouble. We knew our parents said it was wrong. We knew we were going to get grounded when we did it. And so to take the road, but I did it anyway, it's okay, so you go ahead. It's risky. And I think that's why this partnership was born, to just show, we are committed to saying that we support enforcing the illegal aspects of this, that it's still wrong and there's still danger that comes with it. And so we started with the county supporting us with one of our 2 detectives. And then they were able to do a little more, but when the marijuana money, the tax revenue went away, the county still funded, they went down to half a detective, but they still funded it because they wanted that partnership to be. And so I can show you all the results that we get from Dustin and now Tony, and they will get. But I think it's more about continuing the partnership that the county and this, some of it goes to enforcing the crime that comes with the bad actors.
First of all, the bad actors mostly are not the industry. Not that I don't believe that they don't exist.
Any questions?
So you said that most of the 75,000 last year primarily went to overtime coverage and instruments to help with identification.
No, sorry. The 75,000 is always going to help fund one of our detectives. Okay. We had a state help that helps fund some of the expenses, never all of them. So we always end up spending a lot more on it, but we do have a grant that comes to help that they won't help with our labor standard, just with outside of.
Do you have an idea of the gap that you are missing currently between revenue grants and the 75,000 actually, given inflation?
Well,
that you collapse.
That's kind of, we know that the money's tight and there are a lot of good programs here. And so we don't want to say, oh, come up with inflation. It's more kind of, let's keep that stake at about half the FTE. I think about, because with payroll costs going up, it's 75 is not fully going to cover the benefits of full FTE. But I would say outside of the grant, we're probably putting in a little over $500,000. Well, not quite $1 million, but probably 500,000 or 600,000.
And Andrew, I hope you understand what he was saying was we've applied for and have been getting grants with this, grants with the state that pays for our analysts. That we ended up getting a couple light labs for testing, pays for that, pays for, there's an ongoing cost for the equipment to run the light labs for the testing equipment. Every time we do one of these search warrants, we could have anywhere from 10 to I've had up to 50 people at a search warrant. That is tapping the resources at the sheriff's office, for people in the jail, for people in our office, for people on the road. That's being paid out of primarily that grant. This particular amount of money that he's talking about now is only going to a base salary for either him or myself. So I would say right now, if you're looking at his salary and my salary, this particular amount that we gave last year is paying about a quarter of what we cost. Does that help clear that up a little bit?
Okay. Any other questions, Jake? don't see your hand, but I'm gonna, no. Okay. Great, thank you. Thanks very much. And Eric, should we excuse our guests?
It's up to the panel members. I mean, unless it might be nice that they can get home to their families and get dinner,
Yes.
unless there's additional questions that the panel has of them.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would you need help me getting contacted? Him or?
Yes, who would you like to get in contact with? Jake?
Yes.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Getting the.
Yeah.
Well, because I know we discussed it last year, and it was helping up, so, yeah.
The process went so much smoother because of.
We were kind of rushed.
Yeah, kudos to putting the time in.
Right.
That was great.
And the packet that, you know, this
Yeah.
is really good.
Sorry, I didn't print out. Sorry, I didn't print out the packet.
Yeah. No, read the check. Yeah, I mean, last year we were still figuring it out.
Yeah.
So this year.
So when do we need to make decision or recommendation to the board, this meeting or next?
This meeting, because the next meeting is July.
Yeah, and that's.
Yeah, the budget committee week is May 21st.
Okay.
So that's when we would like to have a recommendation to the budget committee.
Okay. Even though it's not on our agenda, I think now we need to talk about the dispersal of the funds that we have. Does everybody agree with the proposals that we received? Are there recommendations to do something else? You know, again, I kind of opened it up last time we were talking about money distribution. How would you like to approach it this year?
Well, I'm just, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna. You can't just Mary.
Well, I mean, the health services, community development, I mean, it totally makes sense to me, and also with the sheriff's department. I have questions in regards to what the juvenile department wants to offer, specifically because I know that they already do cognitive behavioral stuff in the department. They've been doing that for years. And so to have that kind of money, and it's only, I don't know, it's, to me, it seems we need to have a more overreaching, like what I'm like the health department's doing them. Let's get a hold of those parents and so forth. And at our last meeting, we talked about right up front of like one of the key things that we know makes a difference for kiddos. It's great to have, you know, school building, but it's having them connected to services, adults, other things like that. We talked about that in the last meeting, and I'm just feeling like that's just my thing.
Existing from any of the proposals?
Well, that from
or just the community justice?
It's just the community justice. I mean, it's a lot of money to put into something we don't even know what the success rate is on that program.
Well, one of my concerns is 18 slots for 25,000, and they're going to provide 7 in-house, and you know, I don't know if I necessarily want to fund other entities to take this. It's short-sighted on my part. Right. And if we, yes.
Sorry. Well, then you had a comment.
Well, my only comment was I felt like the least beneficial service that we heard from was CDP so far. Just in the aspect that it doesn't seem entirely effective for our purpose. I understand code compliance is very important. And I do understand that that department is leaching currently and going to be taking but as an impact overall in effectiveness, I feel like it was the least effective out of all the options that we didn't share spending for health services would be wholeheartedly more effective in our cause. Increasing houselessness and other issues that go along with that department.
And I tend to agree. I mean, you know, he was talking about 4 locations that needed cleaning up. What is the overall benefit to the community of Deschutes County to spend $20,000 on 4 locations of private leased lands? Personally, you know, we have such limited funds. No, he's talking about hauling out the garbage and paying solid waste.
He was talking about vouchers, talking about vouchers, stuff like that.
But another point is it's $10 or $12 for 400 pounds at the solid waste facility. So we're not talking about spending sort of I mean $1,000 max to get a house. It's a pound plastic. That's what's a good positive where a normal renter that causes an exorbitant amount of damage to your property isn't necessarily sure if that landowner is really desperate solid waste facility work with that.
And I did like the conversation we had about having a CDD individual go with you on raids, but I didn't get a real good sense that, yeah, that, you know, Peter would be able to do that, that the 20,000 would, yeah, and wondering, well, if we do the 20,000 without a stipulation, will it just go into their budget and potentially not end up with the objectives that we would set out? So,
well, I think what he didn't say, but I heard from one of the commissioner meetings when they presented feed increases is that the average compliance officer handles about 80% per individual. So I don't think that would be a check to test it out. And
I mean, I guess, you know, I'm more apt to support code enforcement, mainly just because I'm so over this excuse. I didn't know, but I would like to find some way that really goes to the team and enforcement. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, but not doing due diligence on a business deal is unacceptable offense.
but that provision to our,
but I don't know if that's code or if that's legal or what. So I mean, I think the intent last year with that was to try to, you know, not support private landowners, but to help enforce in some of these situations that saw rising. I don't know if we did that. Interesting thing I saw reading through that packet was asked for by these is within $10,000 just for what they're asking right now. So I mean, it kind of it's a kind of easy math, like
But we can also
Say, we can read a lot.
exactly.
I mean, it comes, we can make our suggestions.
Right.
Well, and we as law enforcement, another thing we've been working on for the last couple of years, it's been a long time coming because it's an expertise in which I don't have, a lot of law enforcement doesn't, and that is a lot of your pesticides and your fertilizers and different things that are being used, being wasted on the ground, spilled on the ground. We have been working hand in hand with an environmental company or environmental group here in town that we will go out and actually are getting to the point where we have them come out on our search warrants. And they have seen and documented a lot of the fertilizers, a lot of the pesticides, and a lot of things that they're putting on plants and they're using in these grows. We're doing this in conjunction with the DA's office. The DA's office is using Jake Chandler, who is an investigator. He used to work for Benton's department. And we're getting him educated with the environmentalists as to what to look for, as to write secondary warrants into the property while we're on scene. Because I can't write, so for instance, if I were to write a warrant into a location for a grow, I don't know what pesticides they're using. I don't know what fertilizers they're using. I don't know what kind of hazards we're going to see, like DEQ. Does that make sense? So, but when I get on scene, then I would see those things. I'm not educated, I'm not expert, I'm not trained in, right? So what we're doing is we're getting Jake Chandler up to speed so that he knows what he's looking for, that he can do a separate standalone amended fill in the blank warrant to get our environmentalists to come and take samples legally. Because with the warrants we're writing right now, we can't take those samples because I don't have the knowledge on it. I can't write the probable cause into the state statutes that are being violated for the certain crimes that are being committed. But that's one thing that we at the sheriff's office has been fighting with and working with the DA's office. It just takes more people, more time.
Those charges probably go against the landowner.
They would potentially go against the landowner. We've been dealing with DOJ. DOJ is willing to come and co-chair in the courthouse with our DAs to charge these environmental crimes. It's been a hurdle getting there. We're trying. But that is one of our future things that we are trying to do. This is again just hard, right? With the DA's office now putting forward a whole bunch more, me putting forward a whole bunch more, just trying to get it so we can get it up and running because we aren't seeing the impact of the CDD violations being put on the owners as a deterrent, right? Now, do we want to go through and put a red tag on these people's property that it's now infected or it's now condemned or it's now an issue, right? We don't necessarily want to do that. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to find a way to find teeth to get people to stop committing this illegal activity, right? And so those are things that we are going towards to help with the environmental portion. So, well, that's what it is. It's usually a Walmart at least, but 25 to $30,000. So, and I'm not doing that to say that CDD is not doing anything. I can't say that. I know that we are making our referrals on our cases to CDD. I just don't get that end of the feedback. I don't get to see what the fines are. And again, when he said, there's lots of different steps of litigation to get through that, to fix that. And I don't know what it is. I know that every indoor grow I go to has illegal modifications. I know everyone has illegal electrical. I know all of them have hazardous environments. Things that, I go to Jefferson County and I do a couple search warrants up there to help them. And their CDD guys are in our back pocket taking pictures of the aftermarket wiring. We go down to Lake County, they're doing the same. Go down to Josephine and Jackson, those guys are right there in your pocket. And it's like, I made the phone call, and they whether it's staffing, which it might be, especially if they're down, like you said, if they have 4 and they're down 1, I get it. I get caseload because I have a caseload. So we've also ran into that with the water master. Not necessarily this water master, because I've never met Jake, but we've ran into that where we had alfalfa it had water rights, but it was on a nursery water rights. And so we had 49 greenhouses, and the phone call was made to the water district out there and say, hey, do you guys want to come look, see what's going on? And they weren't able to come, and I don't know if it was for what reason, but the understanding was it's a nursery water right, and it could come down to each plant and how much soil is around that plant. And it's not the square footage of the greenhouse, it's the square footage of the actual plot where the plant is. So it would be nice to have everybody at my search warrants. It doesn't work that way. because of water, because of work load that everybody has, caseload that everybody has. And I can't say that it would fix by giving the money to the water district. I can't say that it would fix by giving money to CDD. It's not gonna, we're making a very, very small nick.
Right.
That's going on. We've had that conversation the last time we delegated funds was we're making a very small difference, but where we can help, we want to help, right?
Yeah.
So
well, and 20,000 to CDD to reduce caseload or whatever, so that they can be, you know, I mean, is that enough to really have an impact? So,
and if we do it, we suggest or require that it goes to assist in that situation,
or at least assist in such a way that it may not be on every case, but that's only $20,000. May not be on every case, but a case that you're super concerned about, they need to show
how
up.
can we encourage that collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is if you give the department $20,000, it's one-time funding. You don't buy additional staff
right.
capacity.
Right.
It takes adding FTE to buy the additional staff capacity. That's the best.
Right.
we're looking for supplemental help is what we're doing.
Yeah, and you can't with CDD enforcement folks. It takes the training is you can't call up express personnel and say, hey, send it over to code enforcement.
That'd be nice.
Or they can't carve out 5 minutes of one person's time to, for 3 hours, let's say, to go to a site and pay them out of the 20,000. I mean, it seems cumbersome.
Yeah, I mean, what I heard Peter say is they prioritize based on kind of the criteria.
Right.
But an illegal growth site goes right.
Yeah, I mean, I could get creative and say, hey, Peter, the panel wants to recommend $20,000 if your code folks will go out on at least X number of calls a year.
Yeah. How many calls a year?
Unless they're with a sheriff doing an investigation, they legally can't go on your property to do it.
Well, he's absolutely right. That's why he's saying about voluntary compliance.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the hurdle. I mean, that's sure.
I mean, we could get creative and say the panel would like to allocate $20,000, but you have to go on at least two calls or X number of calls, and if they don't for some reason, this money carries forward. It's not use it or lose it. So happy to get creative. That's the kind of
CDD person there in capacity other than CDD, because you say you need help for these things.
Yeah, but I'm not going to use somebody with special training pulling and stacking plants, right? It would be nice to see the return on your investment and know exactly where your money's going. But I think at this point, we can have people presenting. I mean, it's pretty easy. You look at Joe Brundridge when he comes in and he says he's paying $75 of an FTE for one of these two guys sitting here, right? That's pretty cut and dry. People know where that money's going. Same thing with your advertisement. Hey, we built these commercials and we finance here. We did this, and this. It's just nice seeing where it's going. But the reality is we're going where people need help. We're recommending the money goes where people need help. I don't know that we're always going to be able to see exactly what we buy.
Right. You're absolutely right. That's
right.
Very...
You made a comment earlier, like even with CDD, they didn't come in and say this case. This is the great things you did with $20,000. Does that free up somebody to take a better look at our cases? I can't tell you, I hope he can tell us maybe in the next time when we talk to him, right? I can't tell you what the return was on the cases that I provide. I don't know, and not quite frankly, I don't need more emails telling me what he did. So, I mean, it'd be nice to know sometimes, but yeah, like I said, I can't say that not giving him money is the way either, right?
Right. Well, and I do want to pay kudos to CDD because I was involved in the Marijuana Advisory Committee, and man, that department spent gobs of time on how many meetings did we have in order to create the rules and regulations that we currently have. So, maybe this is a little bit of pay it back, right? To help them out, because really, I mean, for all of their other caseload that they were doing during that period of time, they really ran out.
Now I do have one question too. Now they are responsible for going around and inspecting all the legal ones as well, correct?
I think
Yeah, the
so.
license.
And, you know, he did
Once a
state,
year.
he did once a year, did state that obviously there's no infractions there, the bigger issues were legal. But he is still, that department is still responsible for inspection to our actual legal.
Industry people.
Industry.
And I do believe they also inspect your for patient or medicals.
Oh,
OHA people.
Yeah, anything over.
Change the code where if you apply, get your approval.
Don't have to do it every year.
We go in for the confirmation that you're set up right, and we do a follow-up a year later. Then I don't think we're even going back and change that code.
I think you go, yeah, Hunter would know obviously better.
Yeah.
All of our kids, but I think you're right. Not every year, it's every 3 years now, or yeah, we can't. So I mean, I guess they do have some, you know, regulatory.
and really, without those, there could be the, you know, the slide into not completely legal. I mean, I do think the industry is very good. Yeah.
There's some chats going.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I see chats from Jake, what's he saying? I can't read that stuff.
I couldn't read that far either, so I came in.
That's fine. I was just wanting to share with you. So I was on the House Bill 3000 task force, and one of the things that came out of it was amending some of the administrative warrant and criminal warrant processes. To the sheriff's a gentleman there, and I apologize, I don't know your name, but when it comes to writing the warrant, one of the things that came out of it was that we should probably amend this process to include other agencies as necessary to duly serve the warrant. And so I put it in here, Senate Bill 954 amends ORS 133575. Any entities as necessary, including federal, county, and state agencies. And then you can come in here and you can see civil enforcement agencies like your county code enforcement folks, contractors. In Josephine County, they have excavators and dumpsters coming in and just picking it all up and then putting that bill back on the landowner. And so this does try and like shore up at least that part of it. I can get you an update if you're interested on where it's at. As of a few days ago, it had passed the Senate and is in the House, that particular piece of legislation. So a move to try and open the door a little bit on the warrant side of things to get county code and others in like ODF and W and DEQ and the relevant agencies when you go on these things. One of the things that got the water master's office in the door on every single one of these warrants is obviously you need water, right? You can't grow this without water. Conversely, you could make the argument the county code could come under the same auspices. If it's an indoor grow, it requires electricity. But that would be obviously something for the district attorney's office to, you know, mull over, but food for thought.
And the one thing that came up with that, the reason we were looking at for chemicals and stuff like that, specifically doing a standalone warrant, was we didn't want, because I'm not the expert writing the warrant on the chemicals and the DEQ side of it. I didn't want to lose the DEQ portion of my affidavit in a suppression and lose my whole affidavit for the location. And that's why we were trying to do two separate. I like to see what you're saying as far as adding those different governmental agencies, because you're right. When we get out there, the reason we call the fire department, the reason we call county coder, we call an inspector is because we get on scene and we can say, hey, this is dangerous and this is a problem. We need to have somebody come look at it now for not only our own safety while we're out here, but when we leave in case of fire, right? So that's how we get around it to get people out there at that point right now, is because we have it legally.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah. And I'll just say too, just real quick to Gary, but all of the proposals total are actually $2,000 under the amount allocation because of the increase. Yeah. So if you approved everything, there'd still be additional that we can. Yes.
And the department didn't know what other. I let them know how much money was allocated for each department this year, but they didn't know how much. People were involved.
They did a good work.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick suggestion? I think this is the layout that I did. 10,000 to community justice to see if it can help the 6 to 7 that they have. 10,000 to CDD or the assessor or the VA or a child fund. 60,000 to health services, 100,000.
I apologize for interrupting. I do have to jump though. Jeremy Giffen will be in the next one. If you have any questions for the Water Resource Department that we weren't able to get to tonight, feel free to email me. And apologies again, I do have to take off.
Thank you very much for participating.
Take care. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Sorry. Chat, log in for my video.
I do agree with you saying about the community resources as far as they have 5, 6, 7 people they want to send right now, 1,200 piece, 10,000 will get those guys there.
But I think it was a proposal to bring the trainer here to Bennett.
Was it? That's 20,000 in total.
No, I think it was to send these people to there. Oh, I said it because then he also said that when somebody asked a question about community people, that their cost would not cover training other people in the community. That was what I heard. So
unless, that's hard though, right? Because if he said it was about 1,200 a person for that training, and 18 spots would be allocated is what he's assuming. That does not include any travel, any stay, anything like that. So it might be having a trainer come here.
There was $1,000 on that, or $1,200 travel, $2,000.
Okay, I didn't see that.
yeah, I saw that.
But yeah, that's just what's sticking in my brain.
I was thinking in my brain as I was
Or a 4-day university's training. And then
To Andrew's point, if we want to look at how we could get up differently, even then we're just making suggestions to the county commissioners and final decision. I mean, you could go, we could go, give them all what we want, we got enough money and we still have $2,000. That's all what they asked for. We could divvy up, to Andrew's point, CDD and what was the other one? Justice, right? Community justice. Or we could exclude community justice and everybody else there asked for amount, still giving justice, the sheriff's department $20,000 more if we didn't do justice, like we did in 95. But I think still at the end of the day, it comes to the table. We just have to make our representation. I'd probably need to give them all what they asked for.
What do you think?
But I think you bring up some really good points, Mary, and on that justice program. Necessarily, we don't see the stats coming out of it.
And
not my world.
Well, and quite honestly, it's always such a weird thing. And I mean, I've been to enough trainings that okay, now we're going to try this. Now we're going to try this, and not that we think those options should be looked at, but it's and you're only going to get, when they say 5 people, they're going to try to just like, yeah. And so so that's great. It gets this window here, and of those 300 kids being supervised, they're not all in different drugs. But I guess I'm just the bigger picture of how do we impact more kids that should be. I mean, that's kind of where my man was at.
Stop. Okay.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. Yeah. So anyway, that's why.
Okay. So what is your allocation?
Well, I mean, I can agree with Andrew. Like, okay, maybe we give that a try and just X amount. But I'm going to see the results. I want to see, I want some stats, I want something.
Okay, so you're agreeing
with 10.
I was still along with Andy, 60 health, 100 sheriff.
You have a recommendation.
It's my recommendation. Afterwards, also.
See it as a sign.
I see it as a sign. And so they made our life easy. Yeah, we're not defining. I think they're all.
Well, it is a recommendation to the budget committee, but the budget committee have two commissioners, they can speak for themselves. They do look at the recommendation very serious. What that is to me.
Well, as a starting point, we're already acknowledged that all four of them seem to be reasonable asks. There's going to be value in anything that happens. So,
yeah,
I would think we should do it. Then we'll go.
I would hate if CDD is down on employees and overworked as it is, and if we didn't give them any money, that I didn't get any help, right? And I don't mean that they would do it to be vindictive. I'm just saying, like, everybody in this room that's pitching, asking for money can use it. So, like I said, I don't necessarily disagree with Gary's talk necessarily. Like, if people need that money, why not recommend? It's not like we're taking all the bucks.
Right.
And CBD is responsible for each one.
I think there was this is just an extrapolation from what I saw, is there was a big push when the current president got in office and there was a majority of Congress, Democrats, where people thought it was just going to be legalized across the country. So there was some big plays that happened like that summer. And then all of a sudden it didn't happen, and now we're kind of past that too. But I mean, for that, you know, for just a big, bold, in your face grow, I don't think that's going to happen as much.
Yeah.
And the neighbors were kind of spoke to like 3 or 4 of the neighbors out there in Old County. They're like, yeah, there's talk going up, but we didn't know, you know, everybody's kind of half in, half out about what should we do. I think we're going to be kind of past that.
And I also think all the reporting that has occurred with that big raid that you did has opened the eyes of the community to go, oh my God, you see greenhouses going on?
Oh, might be something going on.
Yeah.
Well, and that was part of our goal because we were operating on a lot less than what Southern Oregon's operating on.
Right.
Our goal has been over this time is to put out press releases.
Yeah.
We try and get one a month. And we try and hit, we don't go out there and just try and hit a press release to do a press release. We try to go in and find the ugly in it, right? What affects the community, what affects the neighbors. And we want people to see that when they Google Deschutes County that we have a team, and it's not going to happen in our county, right? And it helped with the weather because we don't have the best growing season for outdoor, right? It also helped with our community. Our community does care about our community. We're also in a water shortage, right? So I think, you know, when people are being ran out of Southern Oregon, they're looking where to go. They're going to Google Deschutes County. They're going to see we have some enforcement here, and they're going to choose to go. And I hate to say it, but Harney and Lake, and they're going to go further east. And that's not that I want to put them in those places. I don't want them here though. Just I think everybody in this room can agree.
Right.
And I think it's working in our favor.
I think you've done a good job, mate. For sure.
Yeah.
In the last few years.
But in the big picture, we have, you know, this is there's an industry around this, and there's illegal activity separated. But my point is, opioids and fentanyl was killing people right now too.
A lot of it too.
This is a great discussion, but it may not even be where it's happening, which is scary.
Well, we get to help with that too.
But I mean, that's where bad things are happening. Yeah.
Well, and let's all hope that the SB, whatever it is, goes through that addresses the measure 110.
Yeah,
and you get some of this tax
right.
Into the county and actually do something with it, and they deploy the money they have for the rehabs of 10. I'd like to see some of that tax come back to our communities.
So we've got 2 people that agree with Andrew's recommendation. My recommendation is 92 sheriff, 60 health, 20 CDD, 10 community justice. 92 sheriff, 60 health, 20 CDD. Even though I came in here thinking I'm not going to give them anything. You know, I mean, I recall the manic time. So, and 10 community justice again, because, you know, what you've said, 7 out of 18 slots, so there are people.
Yeah, and then in those 18 slots, that those other partners would have to pay their share. Yeah, and yeah.
And there again, Mary, I defer to you because I don't know that world and how it works. So yeah, I mean, I still kind of feel like, you know, it's strange coincidence and everything aligned and it's the same amount. So I wouldn't probably overthink it, but short of that, I would probably back what you're saying. This and that formula. The trimmed down version, something in between. I did that.
I could agree with that. Moderate. If we could do what you were saying, really hold the work or whatever you want to call it, and say really would like this to be a pointed effort rather than increasing homelessness or whatever other efforts is to help CDD. But I feel like most of these people were able to get exact, or at least pretty exact, because how they spent the money, and having, you know, a vague general description of what the actual CDD does is kind of what we heard last year. It would have been really more like compelling to me, because it is public information that we have during that research. Because anybody can request from the county the code violations that are occurring on property to a certain extent once the investigation has occurred. That's resolved. That's all. True. But that's just interesting. I feel like still it was plenty of that everything.
Okay.
But I can agree with what you said.
It's a tweak.
But it's in all aspects, also like we were saying earlier, when we were a multi-million-dollar department and sorry, I can pull my mind to that whole agencies do for this.
Okay, Justin. Opinion.
I'm one of the recipients, so I can't tell you how to I agree. Like law enforcement's going to take all the help it can get. I know our sheriff is, again, going back to what Roger said, the partnerships there. Our sheriff's going to pay for it. He's going to still support this. Like so, if you don't give us money, he's still going to support us, right? Yeah. Anything that comes is a help. We appreciate it very much, right? So obviously, you can see that we're fairly busy with what we've got. I don't know about increasing the budget to CDD to 40, but I don't disagree with leaving at least 20 with them because, like I said, again, I don't want them not getting any help from us to be the reason we don't get it from back.
Right.
And not that they've been doing it vindictively, but because it's just straight, they don't have it. I get it. I can't squeeze so much blood out of it, right? So, and as far as the community, the community portion of it, I think it's at 10,000. I'm kind of with you on that. And then the education portion of it, what did we do? 40 last year is that what we did, and they want 60 this year. Is that correct?
We did 75, and then they want 60 this year.
Yeah.
Actually,
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
okay, so they already have the curriculum, so now they just need to put it out. Yeah, and I think, and I like the idea of getting like, I kind of like Andrew's idea is like TikTok's a big platform. You know, I don't care if you're an adult or if you're a kid, it's a big platform. And I don't care if there's controversy and, you know, with the federal government about it or not, it's a big platform. Until it's still here, it's still reaching a lot of people.
That is the next MySpace.
It is. It's still reaching a very large platform. And you know, I know that she focused a lot on the parents' education. But I'll tell you, I'm raising 2 kids, and my kids see it too. My kids see it from my aspect, and I'm a little bit more of the hey, it's going to hurt you kind of aspect. And I was raised I was raised in the era where they put the car on the front lawn, right?
Yeah.
And it was very influential to me. And that was the way I raised. And so I was raised, and so I still look that way. I'm a little bit harder on my kids than some of our community has become on a lot of the kids, but I think that the education portion is huge.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather get them there than work with them in community justice, you know, I mean.
So the fact that they're going from 75 down to 60 because they already have the curriculum, like, man, if they can make it work, they didn't do that last time.
Yeah, I think that's cool. It's showing fiduciary responsibility. Asking for less, and so, I mean, I would probably motion to second your suggestion, your recommendation is something we're all turning to.
So 92 sheriff, 60 health, 20 CDD, 10 community justice.
All right, please say that one more time.
Yeah, 92 sheriff.
92.
$92,000 to the sheriff's.
Yeah. Okay. 92,000, correct.
Okay.
90.
And
Yeah,
you did have
60,000 health. 20,000 CDD and 10K to community justice. So there's one.
Make a motion.
Do we have to make a second?
Again, these are suggestions, so.
Yeah. All in favor, that's our suggestion.
I have to say, because, you know, the seed has been planted as far as the other aspects for CDD, so the seed has been planted, but it would be nice that we're out that other sport.
So the connection with the sheriff's.
Yeah. So if that is what he does, that seed has been planted.
I don't want to see it being used to throw garbage.
I get it.
Yeah,
So we have school resources that are out there. It's not driven as a DARE program, but we do have you might be able to speak to this more because you're on the patrol side more than I was, but recently we have a lot of involvement with our kids in our schools with our community resource officers. The Pine specifically, we're also pretty heavy in sisters. Again, we're a county driven agency. So we come to Bend, we have Tumalo School, we have Terrebonne, and then we have what's the one up there in Center? Three Rivers. And we have a very good outreach with our school resource officers. I don't know that they're doing a DARE specific program.
They're just both the same.
That was an example of the fact I substitute part-time, and we hear about instances in bathrooms or outside of school. But in the 2 years that I have actually been substituting, I have not been part of a program or witnessed a program that had anything to do with this. I know there were repercussions from general resource officer had cause, but like a person.
There's a program before Discovery John, they are against that. It's Safe Schools. It's a partnership between the county, our health services department, and Bethlehem School District. Bethlehem came to the county. That's what Discovery program. CAT tax dollars goes to schools. They focus on prevention. I could send that application on. It was definitely application sent out to this group.
And wasn't that from health services as well?
Yeah, we talked about the last meeting.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm saying, as far as we don't have know that we have the DARE program, I do know, like I said, our school resource officers are very involved with our kids in our schools. They develop relationships. They know these kids. The kids have a good time talking to them, and that relationship is built for when it comes to the preventative stuff, not the enforcement. Because you're right, nobody wants to look at this cop as just an enforcer, right? And our community, the way we've gone, especially recently with our social media and with our outreach into our community, we want to get the name out there and let the kids crawl around and eat donuts out of the back of an armored vehicle in the driveway, right? That's what we want them to know, is that we're good people. We're there to help them, and our agency does a really good job of reaching out.
I mean, the kids talk to the resource officers all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job.
I mean, like I said, I got kids in our own school district They both have been PD resource officers, but they know them by name. They go, and granted I'm a cop, but they still know by name. All their friends know them by name. And there's a really good outreach in our school resource officer program. We have
Okay. Public comments. You're a member of the public, would you like to?
We're gonna call.
I think the last item on the agenda is our next steps. Next meeting is July 17th.
What was the date you just put out?
And on that one, Justin, you had suggested that Sergeant Vanderkamp wanted to come in and talk about Clear Alliance.
Yes, Clear Alliance would love to come in and talk. He sits on the board with that. And if it wasn't him, the email that I sent you had a name in it. The lady that was in there would be the resource.
Okay.
But either one of them would love to come down.
Okay. Well, let's Clear
Alliance. Yeah, they voiced their opinion and want to come down at least present public this.
Is that within our charter?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's another prevention education program.
Okay.
I think that we're
well, I think we'll all come to that.
I think a lot of work. Well, I've been trying to. I think this time because you can't stay as effectively. There, I was learning a lot. So I think that being the person I can check.
Thank you. But really, we'll all come to your Hawaii and help wherever you need to. Okay. So you may be zooming on that one. Is that right?
Are we going to talk about the two members in application or information in this one? I think that application for our apply.
Right. Eric, would you mind talking us through the process?
But we have two, because of the resignation and the retirement, we have two open seats. One of them is very specifically for a water master position. Jake Johnstone. Yeah, Jake Johnson was on today. He's filling in the interim position for Kyle Gorman, but the other gentleman that you mentioned, Jeremy Griffith is his name, is actually going to be filling that position, which meets the requirement, the very specific water master requirement. It does seem inclined to take that position. So we will bring it to the board as a recommendation versus doing an application process. So last time, the application process, there was a variety of outreach. There was some public positions that would notify applications were open. There was some internal from CDD that Peter and team actually reached out to people and niche requirements. And one of those, so that would be the water master position. The second one, we briefly discussed it with the board last week on filling the position for Joe Stapleton. And that's also it has to have a specific marijuana license. Retail license. Oh, right. That was his. Yes, and there's very few of those actual licenses. So we are also going to do as direct outreach.
What license is it he has? Like curiosity.
The marijuana retail outside city limits rule license.
I'm not sure if the requirement is that it's retail license outside the city, but that's certainly more appropriate for this committee. So the direction of the board was apparently there are two retail outside of city limits, and it was go check with the other person. Yeah, that's not very the
center of this nation. What's the other one?
But mine has mine has one on Burgess, and I also have one next to the old Nance.
That's what it doesn't. There's one.
I think you might know the guy, but yeah. Right. Don't you? And he the guy that had the issue with the cards?
What?
With the food cards you were talking about?
Oh, that guy got turned down. Like,
Hayes, yeah.
that didn't happen.
Well, he wanted to build it where the roundabouts.
Correct, but I hear there's one coming in that I did. I don't know, it's just second hand. I'll find out. Yeah, I heard that new thing over there behind the or something. I'll see if I can find out.
So we're doing some direct outreach there, and hopefully we can provide some recommendations to the board with the direct outreach. Doing a public notification for such a niche thing is a little challenging under this position.
Yeah.
So that's what we're hoping for. So that's going to be our process. If you have, particularly with the marijuana retail, they have to be the license holder. So that was the issue last time with the Sun River person that didn't actually have his name on the license for it. I think his name is Matt. Yeah. Anyways, I've reached out to him and ways to see if the license holder would be interested, or if the situation changed the last 2 years, he may have it. So we're trying to do some internal direct outreach to provide recommendations.
Why did that license? Or why does that position have to be a retail license? Grow license.
Well, grow is hunter and you.
Oh, well, I'm economic development. Yes, I got.
Oh, okay.
I was suggested by. Yeah, that's the other guy.
So the requirement
in chamber, I believe. Right. This so happens that I also have a business.
So you're the representative of the country, our county's knowledgeable about that. No.
Correct.
Yes. So one of the
I believe that.
If we can't find somebody that has a retail license to fill that seat, one option could be to have the board move you from your economic development seat to the retail license seat and then fill that.
Even though he's in the city, but still take him as a.
Yeah, we'll just double check, make sure that it's not.
Specifically say city.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I think what the board preference was a more rural.
Yeah. So that brings to mind that, you know, La Pine does have a couple folks there. Maybe, I mean, if this committee is supportive, reaching out to the folks that are in the city, because that's kind of.
In the city of La Pine.
Yeah. Even though it's city,
like that idea.
Still not.
Yeah, it's not bad.
County.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, because they don't have their own committee for themselves.
Well, conveniently, the bulletin just listed all of the retailers today.
You're shopping. Get it. Yeah, so I would be amenable to La Pine.
Just that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we just talked about that, whether it's a bit qualified, but that makes sense. It makes sense.
So the good thing is we have enough time before the next meeting in July to go to the board with nominees.
Right, and if, yeah, I mean, you know, the biggest thing is to make sure we have quorum, and today was really close because this was our voting.
Yeah, I read the charter and it says.
We've been going back and forth with legal, trying to figure out during this meeting the 6, since there's only 6 current members, or if it's 8. We're still trying to get final determination on that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And if I recall though, the wording in it, because I was at one time considering running for one of the licensing positions. And then I made the decision not to, because we were in the city limits, not the county, and I thought it was better for people like Hunter and people in the county that deal with it to be involved. So I didn't apply, but I don't think it excluded City of Bend, City of La Pine.
It does.
It doesn't. The retail position didn't have to be in the county, so we could just expand it to another retailer, whether it be in La Pine or, which would be preferable because that's more of a rural.
Yeah.
Or we could open it up to another Bend. And I do know, if I recall, some of the positions were 2 and some were 3, just so you're staggering the roll off. I would.
Yeah, I just looked that up, and the first round of seats expires in the fall of this year.
Already?
Yeah.
Time flies.
And then the forum, it says that our charter says a quorum, parentheses, majority of the CAP members shall be required to make recommendations. We're clarifying, we'll clarify with legal, does that mean quorum of filled seats or total seats?
Yeah.
So we'll find out and get back to the committee.
Yeah, we have that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I was gonna run, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna let somebody in the county do it, but then when I go to the events and we nominating
How many of the panel members are expiring their terms?
Yeah,
I should say it that way.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just go through the list. Hunter is up until October 23. Joe, who just resigned this week, it's October 23. Dustin, you're October 23. Andrew, you're October 23. Mary, you're October 20 of 2024. Liz, you're also October 2024. And then the water master is October 2020. So it's half and half.
These are yours.
24 too. We did the same.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Gary. You're on page 2.
Used to that.
October 2024.
Well, the other thing we may want to talk about next meeting is having the chair change. I don't necessarily need to keep leading.
You're right, it should change.
Yeah, it says the charter is no panelist shall be chair for more than 2 consecutive years.
Well, and I started it.
So you got till October.
October, yes, we should, yeah. Yeah.
Well, then we should probably then talk about with all the seats that are expiring in October, if there's anybody who wants to reapply.
Can they?
Yeah, we'll have to have a conversation with the board.
Okay.
But that's.
Okay, so I'll notate that as things that we'll bring back to the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then topics for next meeting, we had one identified.
Clear lines.
Clear lines. And want to just stay with that?
Oh, and CDD, right? For the code compliance summary.
Yes, the CDD code compliance summary of the 2023 annual report. Sergeant Vanderkamp, presenting on clear lines, and then discussing chair rotation and penalty.
Yeah. Or maybe legislative, if there's legislative.
One, yeah. Could have a bit.
Like into June.
Yeah, if there's any big changes. Maybe.
The 2098 could.
EA is like 30
If they haven't made it to a certain point, then they.
Well, there's that happening right now. If they haven't made it to a certain point in the committee or ways or means or something, they're dead. But ways or means that should still go to like June.
Yeah.
Okay.
That happened last week or a week and a half ago was the.
Yeah, it wasn't assigned to committee or group or.
Well, they have so many going on.
No, it's a weird thing because things are getting sponsored and then sponsors just don't follow through. It's like, okay.
Well, then to Commissioner Bone's point earlier, yeah, a lot of people thought, things were going to happen on the national level with the new administration. That it hasn't. We have safe banking sitting in the Senate, it's sitting there for. Here we get next to act like this.
Be able to bank. Okay. Oh, I guess we should we conclude the meeting? Conclude the meeting.
There you go.